Thanks so much for joining, Amanda. I've been looking forward to our conversation. We thought it would be great for us to speak to you with October being Mental Health Awareness Month. Our aim this month has been really to create a space for people to grieve over various aspects of their fertility journey, and not just grieve, but also open a space to talk about some of the difficult aspects of a fertility journey, which can sometimes be purely focused on the medical side of things, or on the physical side of things in terms of getting your body ready to create a pregnancy. And so we're very glad that you're able to carve out some time to chat to us. We'd obviously like to talk about treatment or at least preparing oneself pre and post treatment, and looking at different coping strategies. So to start off with, what is a fertility coach?
Great. Well, thanks for inviting me to chat. A fertility coach essentially is somebody who works with you to support you, guide you, prepare you, and get you in the right space for fertility treatment, if that's what you're doing, or even in terms of natural fertility, if you're still at that point. I imagine most of our listeners would be people who are looking at fertility treatments, so I'll talk about it in that sense. So I think a lot of people feel that they're not, there's nothing wrong with them psychologically, emotionally. They don't need to go and see a therapist, but that they could certainly do with some support. And I think a lot of people don't realize what potentially lies ahead of them, unfortunately, when they start in this game, on this journey. So I think, a fertility coach is somebody who's there for you in your corner, who can hold your hand, guide you, support you through the process, which can be taxing. Some people sail through it fantastically, and other people need a little bit more support. I certainly did. And that's what kind of got me into this. Was I was working as a coach prior to my fertility journey, and then things started not happening. And actually, through a friend and another suggestion, I happened upon a woman who was doing fertility coaching work, and we worked together for quite a few sessions during my preparation for IVF, donor-conceived IVF treatment. And it was just really, for me, it just felt like it was great to have somebody that I could chat to in a non-judgmental way, who could help me look at, was there anything blocking me emotionally, anything I needed to do to get ready. And mostly, I think it was about feeling that I was actually doing something and putting my head in the game and getting myself mentally and physically prepared for the process. So as you say, it can be a very medical process. Doctors are doctors, and that's their speciality. And they don't always have time to sit and chat and handhold and answer a million questions and things. So that's where somebody like myself comes in. I'm really there just to support you emotionally through the process.
Yeah. How often did you see your fertility coach when you were going through IVF?
Sure. Probably every couple of weeks. That's what I normally recommend to my clients. So we normally space our sessions out about sort of 2 weeks apart.
Okay.
That seems, every week can be a bit much, but it can also work, depending on the person's need for support, essentially. So, usually I found every 2 weeks works quite well. 4 to 6 sessions I normally recommend. You can't really get too much done in one session, but it can be a help. But it's great to actually identify some goals and work with those in the process, and that obviously takes a little bit of time and some work in between as well.
Okay. And how or at what stage should I consult with a fertility coach?
I think as early as possible, to be honest, would be my answer. As I said, though, a lot of people don't realize that they need support, or even think that they might need support going into it. And it's often after people have had a loss, a cycle that hasn't worked, or some bad news or things like that, that they then realize they need some help. But to my mind, going into your very first cycle already with preparation, knowing what you're going into, being prepared for it emotionally, having somebody to support you, I think is first prize. So to me, it would be, my answer is, as early as possible. I think getting support at any stage of the journey when you feel like you need it is important.
It's helpful. Yeah. So fertility coaching is usually understood to be a woman-focused form of therapy, if you like. Is there any way that fertility coaching can help both my partner and I?
Absolutely. So I work with couples as well. Typically, it is normally as you say, a female focus, because the woman is the person going through the more invasive parts of the treatment and that sort of thing. But I think men struggle just as much, and particularly when there's male factor infertility involved as well. So, and I think, it's a couple thing for typically, obviously one does get women who are doing it alone as solo mums by choice, which is also important, but oftentimes it is the traditional couple, and the man needs just as much support as the woman in the equation, and also potentially on guiding him how to support his partner when she's going through mood swings, or feeling the effects of fertility drugs, or dealing with a loss, things like that, things that come up along the way. So it's absolutely possible to work with couples together, or what I would normally recommend is to see the couple together initially, and then to work with each person separately, and then come back together, for a few checkpoints in between.
Okay. All right. And in terms of the fertility coaching itself, what's the biggest thing I can do for myself before treatment?
I think for me, it's really about being prepared and being emotionally prepared. So know what it is you're going into. Do your research. Ask your doctor all the questions that you've been wanting to ask. And take time for yourself, really, really look after yourself. So for me, it's important to try and reduce your stress levels as much as possible. Look, anybody going through, say, an egg retrieval is going to be a little bit stressed about it. It'd be weird not to be. It's a medical procedure that brings with it all sorts of anxieties. So there are, the day-to-day stresses involved in the cycle. Perhaps injecting yourself isn't great for you. So that's normal stress. But for me, what's more damaging is the long-term chronic stress that comes up for a lot of people who are often quite perfectionist, time urgent personalities. So, somebody, if you're constantly beating yourself up about like, is there something wrong with me? Have I left it too long? Those kind of negative thought cycles that can really cause a lot more damage and stress on an ongoing basis. So to my mind, it's important to try and take time for yourself, to consciously put an effort into relaxing, to making sure you're eating healthily. It doesn't have to be a gluten-free, dairy-free, whatever diet, but just, nourishing, healthy foods. Lay off the coffee, the sugar, this, sensible sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Taking some time to do some exercise, gentle exercise. Don't suddenly take up running if you've never done it before, but get out into nature if that's possible. Take a walk, go down to the beach if you're near the sea, in the forest, even just around your neighborhood, or walk with the dog. Spend time with friends if that's possible. Things that nurture you, and put off those hectic things that you've been planning for work. Try and carve a bit of time out for yourself. To me, that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
And to get support, of course. Yeah.
To get some?
And to get some support if you feel like you need it.
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, they approach IVF as a 2 to 3 month task or endeavor. And many of us can handle a level of stress for 2 to 3 months because you're just in it for 2 months. You'll handle it. You'll deal with all the stress that comes with it. Then you're out. Whereas in reality, it can take longer to finish, to fall pregnant. and there are sometimes losses along the way. So it's important to be optimistic, obviously, and be going for the best treatment that you can afford, and that your doctor has recommended, and really hope for the best. Success rates are amazing, but the reality is that it doesn't always work, and sometimes there are bumps around along the way. So investing in something like fertility coaching and in your mental health during the process is enormously beneficial.
Yeah, it really is, because as you say, it's I mean, for some people it does work first time around and they're very, very lucky, but oftentimes that's not the case.
Yeah, I think
for me, that was a big shock when I started on my journey, because I'd always kind of thought, well, you know, if I can't fall pregnant, there's always IVF. And then nobody ever told me IVF maybe doesn't work all the time, every time. And that was a big shock, you know. And then well, if my eggs aren't great, I can get donor eggs. And I was fortunate that first time around it worked, but I've come across a lot of people where even donor eggs don't necessarily take first time around.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's where support comes in, and just having somebody to kind of hold your hand through it, because it can get very tough.
Yeah, that's very true. So how do I decide? This is a question from one of our patients, is asked, how do I decide the best ways to cope with the rigors of the cycle? So for instance, I think where she was coming from was for someone else, for one person, going for a run after your doctor's appointment or before your doctor's appointment may be good for you to help you. For another person, it might be going for a massage, or staying off your phone, or, you know, we have different coping mechanisms. So how, in our coaching sessions, how do we decide the best methods for me?
As you say, it's completely individual to each person. So that's something we would have to look at in terms of, what I like to do is, as an integral coach, I look at the whole person, at the big picture. So we're not going to look just at your fertility issues, but rather at how those things then show up in terms of your relationships, your emotions, your physical body, your work, your community, your family, all those sorts of things. So, we would then look at what are your preferences in terms of what brings you joy, how do you like to relax, and what would work best for you. So for some, as you say, for some people, they love a massage, other people can't bear it. So it really depends on what works best for you. And obviously coaching is a customized, very individualized process. So there is no one size fits all, unfortunately. But I would just say, you know, think to yourself, what is it you could do for yourself that would bring you a measure of peace, relaxation, and comfort right now? What would that be? And to really, like, you know, to turn inward and think, what do I need right now? Not what does my husband need, or what does my mom need, or, you know, what do my friends need? It's like, this is the time to be selfish. You know, this is really to say, this is about me and the baby that I'm trying to create and grow. And what can I do to support myself and to support us best in this process? Yeah,
that's an incredible question for all of us. It's a question that we don't ask ourselves often enough in today's very harried world of moving on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So that's enormously helpful.
Thanks.
What support measures would you suggest we put in place before we begin a cycle?
So I think it's about, for me, what's quite important, what's come up a lot of times with my clients is that sometimes you feel quite tempted to tell a lot of people that you're going for treatment. You know, and you kind of put it out there, and it's great to have that support from people who are then checking in with you and wanting to know how it goes. But mostly people tend to regret that. That's what I've noticed. So my advice would be to keep it small, to identify a small circle of trusted people that are on your team, that you want to know what you're going through and who you would like to be there to pick you up if you fall and to support you through the process.
Yeah.
Because having, 20 mates messaging you and wanting to know what's going on and how's it gone and how are you feeling and when are you testing, and that it just becomes a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So that's my advice. So identify the people that you're sharing with, identify the people that can support you. So a best friend, somebody like myself, a therapist, your IVF coordinator, whoever it might be, obviously your partner if you're doing it with a partner. And just try and see who's going to be there for you in your corner, who's not going to put any additional pressure on you.
Yeah.
So some people don't even like to tell their mum because they know like their mum's going to be so invested in the process, and although she loves you, it just might be more than you can deal with right now.
Yeah.
That you just tell her when you have the good news. Other people, it's a different story. They want their mum there with them every step of the way. So it really depends. But it's about identifying who's there for you, who's in your team, and keep it small, I think.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. We have patients asking us that often, and it's usually a by the way question of who to tell, because the IVF or fertility treatment it's quite different to other things that you tell people that you're close to in your life. Like you said about telling your mom, you may love her and be very close to her, but she might not be able to give you the support that you really, really need. She might be over invested in the process. It's about asking that question that you said earlier about what would bring me joy, what do I need right now, and perhaps having someone calling or texting you every day, all day, with their opinion and their advice isn't necessarily helpful, and it can feel selfish to have those boundaries. But it really is about you and the pregnancy and child you are trying to grow and create.
Absolutely. If there's ever a time to be selfish in your life, now this is the time.
Yeah. How do you look at loss at different stages in the IVF process or fertility process? So it could be a not so great egg retrieval or egg number result or laboratory result, and possibly a pregnancy test that has come out negative, and of course miscarriages or biochemical pregnancies. How is that something that you look at in fertility coaching, on how to deal with the anticipation of that and the reality of that happening?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really important. To be honest, the whole fertility journey involves a lot of loss and a lot of grief. I think every single monthly cycle that you're not pregnant is like, there's grief around that, isn't there? It's the loss of that potential that you were so hoping. So even, before even doing something like IVF, just your normal monthly period, can be a really triggering time for people. It's like another month and I'm not pregnant, and so there's those sort of mini losses, I guess. And then of course there's, what obviously everybody hopes never to experience, of a miscarriage or pregnancy tests that don't come up the way you want them. So yeah, it's about being realistic, about understanding what the odds are, preparing for it. And it's always a tricky one, because going into a cycle, as you said, you want to have that hope, and you're investing a lot financially and emotionally into this process. So you really want it to work, but you also don't want to get yourself so up there that you're going to be completely crushed if it doesn't work. So for me, it's around looking at balance. So bringing balance into the process, into your life, into your expectations, into your conversations, into the whole way you sort of showing up in relation to this journey, and remembering that it is a journey, and that I often like to say, you're not there yet. So somebody's stressing them, but what if it doesn't work? Well, you're not there yet. And if you are at that point, then you will deal with it. And looking at when have you previously survived something? What have you been through before? How did that work? What did you do to cope with that loss? Seeing if we can apply that to the current situation, that kind of thing. But, I think around the losses is where the support really is important. And also helping. Sometimes you can't see the wood for the trees when you're really in it. And so it's around bringing possibly a fresh perspective, asking possibly some tough questions, but some different questions to open up the way you think around things, looking at your next steps, that kind of thing. It's always good to have a backup plan. If this doesn't work, what's my next step? If this happens, what then? That for me feels like you have then some sort of measure of control in the whole process.
I often think that one of the difficult things about a fertility journey is the waiting. You are constantly waiting to hear what treatment you need to, the doctor wants or suggests, and then you're waiting to start treatment, and you're waiting to see if you have any side effects. Then the egg retrieval, and there's the 2-week wait, and there's a lot of waiting, and sometimes if things don't work out at the step that you're at, it sends you right back to the beginning. And like you said, there's a lot of investment that goes into a fertility journey. It's financial, it's emotional, and there's also the time investment, because for all the time that you are spending in cycle or waiting for the next cycle, that you're kind of away from the other areas of your life. And I suppose coaching involves creating balance in your life as well. So what sort of goals?
So often put their lives on hold, don't they?
Yes. Which makes
holidays. I might be pregnant, or and that you get onto that sort of hamster wheel, which is tricky. And then 3 years have passed and you haven't had a holiday, and then you wonder why you're stressed. So it's, that kind of thing we look at. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to ask, what sort of goals do most people set for themselves during treatment?
Sure. That's, again, very personal to each person. I think a lot of it's around balance. How do I bring balance into my life to make sure that I'm sort of the most positive, least stressed as I can be going into a cycle? Around how can I be sort of my optimally fertile self? What can I do to make sure that my fertility is in its best place? How will I look? How will I feel? What will I be thinking? Those kind of things. We can't set a goal around, I want to have a baby, because unfortunately that's not within anybody's control. So it's more around what can you do to prep for that, to be in the best possible space. That's generally what the kind of things people like to look at.
Okay. We have a message from one of our from Instagram. She asked, I struggle with the 2-week wait. What can I do?
Yeah, that 2-week wait. It feels like 2 years, doesn't it? Again, I think it's about trying to take pressure off yourself and keep yourself busy, because at this point, you're kind of leading up to it. You've done whatever you can do, and now it's a question of waiting to see what the outcome is. So I think to try and keep yourself busy. If you're a crafty person, I don't know, take up a new knitting project, or making time to just watch some lovely romantic movies and, take some quiet time, but not too quiet that you're sort of staring at the walls, So I think it's about carrying on with life, maybe trying not to dwell on it too much. It's tough, I'm not going to lie to you. There's no way to make it easy, but there are things you can do to kind of try and take the pressure off yourself. And actually, although it can feel very long, it can also go pretty quickly. So I think a lot of people just kind of throw themselves back into their work, not working crazy hours, but focusing on something interesting, reading, watching movies, spending time with their partner, going for walks. So all the general self-care and nurturing things, maybe doing a little project that you've been putting off for a while. But obviously taking it easy physically. I think rest is important. It takes energy to grow a baby, so you don't want to be diverting your body's energies too much elsewhere. Eating those nurturing foods and basically treating yourself as if you are pregnant.
Yes.
Because you might very well be, So eating the right foods, not drinking coffee and wine and all those kind of things. And for me, it's important if you can bring in some sort of mindfulness type of work. So bringing in some simple meditations or breathing practices, just to really just try and keep your stress levels low. That's what I advocate. Yeah.
Okay. So we have a final question. How do I set realistic expectations so I'm not completely crushed if it doesn't work?
Yeah. So I think that's something that I've spent a lot of time on with my clients in sessions. So it's hard to give a sort of a one-line answer, but it really is, I think, as we've kind of tapped into before, is about bringing a degree of positivity and hope to the process, but also not getting yourself so invested in the process that you will be completely crushed if it doesn't work. I mean, you are going to be upset, obviously. It would be weird if you weren't, but it's about, and that's why I think it's really important to have that backup plan. So to know, okay, if you are doing IVF, this is my financial situation. This is how many rounds I can afford to do, or this is, I can afford to do a fresh round, and then if I'll have so many eggs or embryos frozen, I could afford to do X many frozen transfer cycles, or whatever it is, or I can afford to do one more round and then no more. So it really I think it's about having a realistic expectation of yourself in terms of where to from here. So if it works, fantastic. If it doesn't, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So, and obviously take the time you need if it doesn't work, to regroup, get yourself back in the game, and then continue with your plan. I find it's people who don't have plans will so say you can only afford one round of IVF. That's where it becomes really tricky. I'm not saying don't do it, but it's then suddenly becomes so much pressure and so much invested in that one treatment cycle, and that's where I've seen people get the most devastated. It's around that sort of scenario. It's like your last chance ever, and that's just an awful pressure to put on yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think for us at HART, our goal is to always advocate that patients integrate fertility coaching in their journey, because our desire is not just to see a patient fall pregnant at the end of their time with us, but we want them to leave still able to recognize their lives and it be a balanced life, and that they have a happy and healthy pregnancy, not just physically and medically, but also mentally. And setting goals and looking at various ways of handling the stress and rigors of a fertility journey it sets you up to have positive outcomes in the future in terms of your pregnancy and delivery and being a new parent. I think we underestimate sometimes the toll that a year-long journey, IVF journey, the knock-on effect of carrying the stress from that into your pregnancy and the discomforts of pregnancy, then the discomforts of that can come with early parenthood. I think we need to pay closer attention to how we can manage the mental health of people who are starting families or completing their families. That's where fertility coaching and even seeing a psychologist is important to have that support.
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody about that this morning. I think, as you say, one underestimates the toll that this kind of thing can take on your mental health.
Mm.
So as a coach, I'm certainly very cognizant of the signs that somebody might need support from a therapist.
Mm.
So, I don't hesitate to refer to a trained psychologist where necessary. I myself was prone to anxiety sort of, prior to my journey.
Mm.
I was actually okay during the whole process, but afterwards I developed postnatal depression, and it's not fun, let me tell you.
Yeah.
And I do think that any sort of predisposition, to anxiety, depression, you really do need to watch that very closely and to get support, get onto the right medication if that's what you need, therapy support, coaching support, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Because, as you say, you think getting pregnant was the hard part. It's the new baby, not sleeping, sleep deprivation can really do a number on your mental health.
Yeah.
And and suddenly your whole sense of self can change. Perhaps you're not working for some time. That impacts you. There's a lot. So I think, as you say, going into it set up, being in the right frame of mind with some balance, knowing how to set healthy boundaries, knowing what it is your goals are for this whole process and what your family values are, looking at those sorts of things can really support you down the line.
Yeah. Okay. Any final thoughts?
Just to say, anybody listening out there, just please take care of yourselves. It's really, really important. Seek help early. Don't suffer in silence. I think that's and you're not alone. There is a big community of people out there who are trying to conceive, struggling to conceive, on a similar journey to yours. There's lots of online resources, fertility support groups online, communities. So, if you're not wanting to see somebody one-on-one like myself, reach out. There are people out there like you that are going through things that you are. And it's good to know that you're not alone.
Yeah. All right, Amanda, thank you so much for your time. This has been very valuable. Thank you
for having me.
All right, enjoy your day.
And you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.